Kale Wren had exactly 15 minutes before he was supposed to meet someone his brother insisted would shift the course of his life. He had spent 14 of those minutes pacing outside the Gravitas Hub, a sprawling cantina on Orbitus, Prime's leisure tier that welcomed creatures from every star system in known space. His palms were slick inside the reinforced synth leather gloves, and he had glanced at his wrist screen more than 20 times, each flickering holographic digit counting down the moments he had left to steel himself. The station throbbed with its usual nighttime energy. Forms of every imaginable shape and size drifted along the corridors, tentacles, brushing metallic handrails, armored plates clanking softly, bioluminescent skin glowing faintly under neon signage. Kale studied them, inhaling the recycled air tinged with spice and ozone, trying to quiet the relentless storm in his mind. He was a kinetic therapist at Helion Medical Complex, accustomed to guiding others back from injury or trauma, but this was different. His brother Lyron had been unyielding for months. "You need to start living, Kale. Lyra would have wanted joy for you. You can't spend forever just being Cora's father. You owe yourself more." The debates had always followed the same rhythm. Kale's responses were predictable, that he was fine, that he had everything he needed, that 7-year-old Cora was his universe and that sufficed. Yet Lyron never relented, and now after months of relentless nudging and perhaps the isolation he rarely admitted, Kyle had conceded. One evening, 1 hour, that was his pledge. He stepped through the entrance. The Gravitas Hub lived up to its name. The expansive room was engineered with adaptive gravity fields, allowing species of wildly different physiology to coexist comfortably. The main level hummed with standard Earth-equivalent gravity, but to Kale's left, low-gravity pockets let gas breathers drift effortlessly, while high-gravity zones to his right kept hulking exoskeletal workers steady. The hum of conversation was a chorus of hundreds of languages, both spoken and visual. Holographic translators flickered above many tables, rendering dialogues into formats comprehensible to all present. Dim lighting painted the interior in deep violet and electric azure, reflections dancing across metallic armor and glistening carapaces alike. Kyle ordered a straightforward synth whiskey at the bar and retreated to a corner table that offered a clear view of the entrance. Lyron had divulged almost nothing about this person, except one sentence that lingered in Kale's mind. "She understands loss in ways most cannot. Trust me." The entrance cycled open and Kale felt his chest seize. A woman of the Varan species glided through in a sleek hover chair, its contours edged with soft cyan light. Her skin shimmered like molten rose quartz and her eyes glowed faintly from within, tracing delicate bioluminescent patterns along her temples and cheekbones, genetic markers unique to her lineage. She wore a modest tunic, embroidered with shifting holographic threads that flickered with every subtle motion. The elegance was tempered by familiarity. This was attire worn often, loved, not new. Her gaze swept the room. For a heartbeat it passed over Kale, then snapped back toward the door, and he could see the color drain from her face, even from across the hub. Her hand shot up, performing a rapid, intricate sequence of Varan, sign language that made his translation implant lag behind. But he did not need the device to read the grief etched across her features. She froze near the entrance, the hover chair's soft hum maintaining her suspension in air. Conversations around her faltered as nearby patrons noticed, curiosity rippling across the diverse crowd. Kale rose and crossed the room. His own hands moved deliberately, signing in the basic Varan language he had picked up months ago. "Hello, I'm Kale Wren. I believe Lyron brought us here for a reason." Her eyes widened further and her hands flew up again faster than he could track. "He told you? Did Lyron say anything about me before you arrived?" Kale shook his head slightly, signing with care. "Only that someone special awaited. Nothing more." A bitter laugh slipped from her lips even though she could not hear it herself. Tears sparkled in the soft luminescence of her eyes as her hands danced through the air, signing rapidly. Of course he did this. He told me I'd meet someone just like me." She had expected someone who could understand her, someone who wouldn't see her as weak. Before Kale could respond, her hands darted again, sharp, desperate. "Please, you don't have to stay. Spare us both the awkwardness. I've been here before." The stilted greetings, the strained conversation, the relief that washes over people when it finally ends. I cannot do that again." Her shoulders trembled as she hid her face, then slowly lowered her hands. The intricate bioluminescent markings on her skin pulsed faintly, a physiological reaction unique to her species, revealing the depth of her inner turmoil. I thought I would meet someone who truly understood me, someone like me. Instead, it's just another charade, another stranger pretending to care for an hour before disappearing. I'm foolish for trusting him. Then Cale did something unexpected, even to himself. He drew a chair close, settling directly in her line of sight. His hands moved deliberately, slower now, with thought behind each gesture. You're right. Liren should have been honest with both of us. He should have told me, and he should have told you. What he did. It wasn't fair. He paused, letting his movements linger so she could see every sign in the dim, violet and blue glow of the hub. But I'm not here out of pity. And I'm not leaving, not unless you truly wish it. Her eyes lifted, confusion mingling with anguish. Why would you stay? You could walk out right now and forget this ever happened. Cale's gestures were steady, anchored in a calm honesty. Because I know what it's like to be guided by well-meaning people who think they understand your needs. I know what it feels like to be treated like something to manage, rather than someone to respect. And I know how exhausting it is to endure pity until solitude seems preferable. I've lived through that. Her hands stilled, her attention now fully on him, luminous eyes searching for sincerity. My wife died 3 years ago. Cale signed, voiceless but unwavering despite the shadow of grief behind every movement. For 3 years, everyone tried to help me move on. Blind setups, forced smiles, concerned glances. Everyone treating me as if I were broken, needing repair. So I understand. I understand the sense of being misled, of feeling betrayed. If you want me to leave, I will. No questions, no judgment, but if you're willing to start over, not as Liran's arrangement, but as two people ambushed by circumstance who might as well share a drink, then I would like to stay. For several silent moments she studied him. Her breath was uneven, traces of tears still glistening along her cheekbones, yet her expression shifted, tentatively, imperceptibly toward something like possibility. You actually know Viren visual language, she signed, her movements slowing, deliberate, not just the basic greetings most humans pick up. Cale nodded. My mother is deaf. Human genetics, early auditory processing failure. I grew up learning visual languages because sound was often unreliable at home. Viren is simpler in some ways than human sign languages, more logical structure. The subtle change in her expression was unmistakable. Not trust, not yet, but perhaps its fragile beginning. She brushed her tears away with the back of her hand, her markings dimming from the throbbing luminescence of emotion to their soft, ambient glow. I'm sorry, she signed, her movements now smaller, controlled. When I saw you, when I realized Liron lied that you weren't Viren, I thought I'd run. I thought I'd bolt the moment I laid eyes on you. Cale responded gently, each gesture precise. I understand. People can be cruel, but when I saw you, I thought Liron had badly undersold you. And then I worried you'd think I was an idiot who couldn't speak coherently. A faint smile tugged at her lips. You were nervous, terrified. I haven't been on a date in 3 years. I had no idea what I was doing. My daughter helped me pick this shirt. Her smile broadened. How old is your daughter? It was a simple human question, curious, genuine, and it broke the last of the tension between them. Cale activated his wristcom, projecting a small hologram. A 7-year-old, human girl with wild curls and a gappy smile, proudly holding a nebula model made from recycled station scraps. Her name is Cora. She's learning visual languages from my mother, though she's still a little clumsy with them. So you told your 7-year-old about this meeting? She signed, her movements gentle, deliberate. She is my entire world, she signed, her luminous eyes flicking toward the small hologram hovering above the table. I share everything with her. Well, age-appropriate versions of everything. She studied the projection for a long moment, a tiny human girl with wild curls and a gapped smile, holding a handcrafted nebula model. When she looked back up, her eyes were still pink from crying, but calmer, more composed. Liren said you were a widower, that you knew what it meant to lose someone. That's why I agreed to meet you, she signed carefully. Each movement precise, measured. I thought, perhaps you would understand what it feels like for your life to change in an instant. Then tell me, Cale signed, leaning in slightly, his gestures slow and patient. And so she began. 5 standard cycles ago, Brintalis Wren was 26 years old by human reckoning. She had been engaged to another Veyron, working as a structural designer on Meridian Station. She loved the observation decks, particularly the ones facing the Helix Nebula, where clouds of ionized gas swirled in impossible colors no artist could replicate. That day had been meant as a perfect break, a brief escape from the routines of work. She and her fiancé, Kalen Soren, had taken a shuttle to a nearby moon for a day trip. The atmosphere was stable, breathable, temperatures mild, and seismic activity low. They had done excursions like this countless times before. The canyon near the southern pole. She signed hesitantly, her movements slowing, almost as if the memory pained her. There's a place where rock formations form natural bridges across cliffs. Breathtaking views. We stopped to take pictures. Kalen moved ahead. I stepped closer to the edge for a better angle. She didn't need to finish. Kale could see the terror etched into her face. 60 meters, she signed. That's how far I fell. The geological survey had been outdated. The rock shelf had given way beneath her. Spinal cord injury, severe neurological trauma, fractured skull. Doctors told Kalen she might not survive the first surgery. When she did, they warned the chances of waking were slim. And when she opened her eyes, they said the paralysis might be permanent. Her hands moved faster now, the signs tumbling out as if urgency demanded confession before courage failed. 3 weeks into rehabilitation, I lost my hearing. Progressive nerve damage from the trauma. Within 6 months, I went from full hearing to profound deafness. I had to learn visual language while relearning how to exist in a body that betrayed me every day. And Kalen? Kale asked gently, his signs patient, inviting. Her smile was tinged with sorrow. He stayed through the first 3 months, visited every day, held my hand, said all the right things. Then one day he came to my room and said he loved me, but he couldn't handle the life that had been altered, the partner he had imagined. He left me at Horizon Medical Complex, barely able to dress myself, relearning silence, learning to use mobility aids, promised he would always care, but could not be what I needed. Kale's hands moved slowly, thoughtfully. So Lyron set this up. He's trying to make up for Kalen's absence. Her eyes widened. How did you... You said Lyron mentioned understanding loss, and you even referenced Kalen. That's precise. Not difficult, Kel signed. Lyron has been my brother since childhood, adopted into the same family after our parents died. He mentioned Kalen once, said he made the gravest mistake of his life. Lyron has tried to fix it ever since, lying to both of us to orchestrate this meeting. Her lips curved in bitter amusement. Clever. Terrible execution, but clever. Lyron is going to get a piece of my mind. Kale softened his signs. Regardless of the methods, perhaps he had a point. We might understand each other's worlds. She studied him, silent now. You said you work at Horizon Medical Complex? I'm a physical therapist, Kyle signed. I help patients recover, adapt to new physical realities. A pause hung between them, charged. You may have been treated there. It's the primary facility on Meridian Station for neurological injuries. Her hands froze mid-sign, eyes widening. Horizon Medical Complex. That's where I rehabilitated 5 cycles ago. Those months were the worst of my life, and strangely the best. I discovered who I was beneath everything I had lost. A subtle understanding passed between them, unspoken yet profound. Both had been shaped by the corridors, the therapy rooms, the moments of triumph and despair, spaces where people relearned to walk, or learned that walking was not the measure of life at all. They ordered second drinks, the tension easing slightly, the first thread of connection weaving quietly between them. They ordered another round, then a third, and Kale began to share the story he carried in silence for years. He signed slowly, deliberately, the dim neon light of the Gravitas hub, casting soft reflections across his tired features. My wife, Lyra, battled an aggressive neurological disease for 18 cycles before it finally claimed her. Medical costs drained our savings even with station insurance. My daughter Cora was 4 when it happened. She spent months asking when her mother would come home. I wake at 5:30 each standard morning, he signed. Exhaustion etched into the gentle lines of his face. Make Cora's breakfast, lay out her pod clothes, prepare her lessons. First shift starts at 07, no sorrow, my mother collects Cora from her learning pod. Lyra was deaf from birth, so Cora is growing up multilingual, much like I did. Evenings are homework, Dinner, bath, bedtime stories I both speak and sign. Midnight, collapse. Then it begins again. That sounds exhausting, she signed, watching him closely. It is, he admitted, offering a tired but genuine smile. But it is everything. Cora is why I rise every morning, why I continue when fatigue blurs my vision. That's what Lyron was talking about. She signed thoughtfully, her luminous markings softening. When he said you needed to start living instead of merely surviving. Probably that. Cale nodded. He's been relentless for months. Every week he's at the observation decks. Cora watching ships dock, lecturing me about how Lyra would want me to be happy. He's not wrong, Kyle added, a shadow of sorrow in his gestures. She did. She made me promise I wouldn't lock myself away forever. But promises made to dying people, they are complicated. Yeah. She signed softly, understanding threading through her movements. They talked until the hubs. Staff began dimming the lights. For the late-night cycle. 3.5 hours had passed unnoticed, as Cale rose preparing to leave to collect Cora from his mother's quarters. She grasped his hand. Her luminous eyes met his, serious, steady. Thank you, she signed, for staying. For seeing past the chair, past the hearing aids. Seeing the person beneath. Thank you for giving me a chance after the worst setup in station history. Kyle returned her gaze, signing with calm sincerity. And for the record, the person I saw was not breaking down. It was someone hurt before, yet brave enough to be present. That takes courage. Courage unrelated to what your body can or cannot do. She laughed uneven. The sort of sound often produced by those who cannot monitor their own voice, yet entirely genuine. The sound lifted a weight from Kyle's chest. A lightness he hadn't felt in 3 cycles. Would you like to do this again? He signed. A real date this time. No Lyron involvement. I would like that. Her smile reached her eyes. Fair warning. She signed back next time. I will complain about Lyron the entire time, deal? I'll even bring a list of all the ways he's terrible. They exchanged comm codes and arranged a meeting for the following week. Cale left the Gravitas hub, feeling as if something fundamental had shifted. He had entered expecting obligation and left with possibility. The next week, they reunited at an accessible art installation on the station's cultural level. Ren guided him through her favorite works, explaining composition and color, theory with a passion that made Cale see art in entirely new ways. Dinner followed at a restaurant she had vetted. Wide aisles, fully accessible. Staff who treated her mobility chair as normal, not an attraction. Their third meeting was a cooking class at Kyle's quarters. Ren admitted she seldom cooked these days. Her quarters were not fully accessible, and she often relied on prepared meals. Cale spent the afternoon rearranging his kitchen, lowering ingredients, ensuring reachability. Together, they made pasta from scratch using a recipe passed down from Cale's grandmother. Flour coated every surface, laughter echoing when dough stuck everywhere but the intended places. This is the most fun I've had in cycles, Ren signed, flour dusting her hands. Though the pasta looks like abstract art. Especially because it looks like abstract art, Cale signed back, grinning. By their 5th meeting, Cale introduced Ren to Cora. He had been anxious, terrified even. Cora was his entire universe. If she didn't like Ren, if there was discomfort or awkwardness. Lyron had reminded him in a rare moment of wisdom that he could no longer separate his daughter from his dating life. This is going somewhere, Cale said thoughtfully, signing with a hint of certainty. And from the way you talk about her, it's clear it is. Cora needs to meet her sooner rather than later. So on a weekend afternoon, Cale brought Ren to the station's biodome. The dome was a lush expanse of alien flora and cascading water features. Sunlight filtered through the translucent panels, casting prismatic colors across the walkways. Cora spotted Ren's hover chair first. She had been taught, thanks to her deaf grandmother. That difference was never frightening. But she had never met a Varen before, let alone one who used mobility assistance. Hi, Cora said, her voice tentative, then attempted the sign. Her hand positions were clumsy, but the effort shone through. Ren's face lit up, her bioluminescent markings pulsing with delight. She signed back slowly, deliberately, adjusting Cora's hand movements with gentle care. Hello, it's wonderful to meet you. You know visual language like your grandmother. Cora's eyes widened. I do. Do you want to practice with me? And just like that, the afternoon began. For 3 hours, Cora peppered Ren with questions. Does your chair go fast? Can you do wheelies? Why is your skin pink? Do all Varen glow like that? Can you hear anything at all? Do you miss music? You make pictures on computers? That's amazing. Ren answered every question with patience and honesty, never talking down to Cora, never treating her curiosity as intrusive. By the end of the visit, Cora had declared Ren the coolest person in the galaxy and extracted a promise that she would teach her more signs. In the corridor outside the biodome, Cora had run ahead to watch a transport ship through the observation window. Ren caught Kale's arm, eyes bright. She's wonderful, curious, kind, so smart. And she likes you. Kale signed back carefully. She really likes you. She doesn't warm up to people easily anymore. Not since Lyra died. Thank you for earning her trust. Without hesitation, Kale drew Ren into a hug, their first real physical contact beyond tentative hand-holding. She fit against him effortlessly, her hover chair at the perfect height for her head to rest on his chest. He could feel her heartbeat fast and strong, the warmth of her skin through the fabric of his shirt. Thank you for being someone I can trust her with, he signed as they pulled apart. Weeks turned into months. The station's simulated autumn gave way to the winter cycle. Environmental controls adjusting temperature, humidity and light to mimic seasonal Earth patterns, maintaining crew morale. Their connection deepened into something neither had expected the night they met in that crowded bar. One cold evening, Kale brought Ren to meet his mother. The station's environmental systems had dropped temperatures to simulate winter, frost shimmering on viewport panels. Ruth Garrett had been cautiously hopeful when Kale first mentioned seeing someone. When he explained Ren was Varen and deaf, Ruth had pulled him into a fierce hug, signing rapidly, Finally, someone who understands our world. The meeting went better than Kale could have hoped. Ruth and Ren connected instantly, signing at a rapid pace about everything from the station's frustratingly inaccessible transit systems to their shared frustration with people who treated deafness as tragedy, rather than a difference in sensory perception. Cora occasionally translated, proud to act as the bridge between grandmother and Ren. She's special. Ruth signed to Kale in the kitchen while Ren and Cora explored a holographic photo album in the living area. Do not let her go. Kale signed back, slightly hesitant. I'm trying not to. Are you in love with her? Ruth signed sharply. The question stopped Kale mid-sign. Was he? 3 months had passed since that chaotic first date. 3 months of learning. Ren's favorite synthesized meals, her design process, the way she bit her lip when concentrating on a tricky project. 3 months of watching her connect with Cora, teaching his daughter that disability was not something to pity or fear, just a different way of moving through the world. 3 months of feeling lighter than he had in years. Yep, he finally signed. I think I am. Ruth smiled knowingly. Then tell her. Life is too short to keep those words inside. But Kale didn't tell Ren, at least not yet. There was something he needed to do first. Something that had been building in his mind since their third date. In early January by Earth calendar, on a Friday evening while Cora stayed at Ruth's quarters, Kale brought Ren to Horizon Medical Complex. The facility was quiet in the evening, operating with minimal staff. The corridors dimmed, bathed in soft bluish light. The Horizon Medical Complex was winding down for the night. Emergency pods were closing, and the overhead lights dimmed into a soft, twilight blue that mimicked a station night cycle. Ren glanced around as Kale guided her through a staff-only entrance, using his credentials, her brows furrowed. Why are we here? She signed. Kale signed back. There's something I want you to see. The corridors were almost silent. Only the hush of filtration systems and the faint glide of Ren's hoverchair echoed between them. Kale watched her expression shift as they passed rooms she clearly recognized. The check-in hall with its flickering holo directory, the therapy chamber lined with parallel rails, resistance rigs and adaptive lifts, the training floor where newly injured patients learned to transfer, to move, to reclaim their bodies in new ways. Ren slowed when they reached the parallel bars. Her fingers brushed the cold metal and her hands trembled. These, she signed softly, these I remember. She swallowed hard. I spent months here learning how to move again. Learning that my body wasn't broken, just different. Mine, but changed. Her gaze drifted toward a corner near a water dispenser. The lights cast long shadows across the floor. And right over there, she signed, a raw edge to her expression, I cried until I couldn't breathe. Right after Kaylin left me, she turned toward Kyle, her face exposed, luminous markings faint in the low light. I was 26 by human count, newly paralyzed, already losing my hearing, and the person I loved decided I wasn't worth the effort anymore. Kyle pulled a rolling stool closer, sitting so their eyes met evenly. He took her hands gently, giving her room to speak. Do you know what went through my mind when I first saw you in that bar? Ren signed, every movement precise.
When I realized Liren lied and I wasn't human at all?
I thought, here it comes. Someone else who's going to pity me, someone who'll try to fix me, someone who'll treat me like a burden they're too polite to abandon. Her sign slowed, gathering strength. I was so angry. I wanted to leave before you could reject me the way he did. Kale didn't move, didn't interrupt. He simply held her hands, letting her unload everything she'd carried. But you need to hear this, she signed firmly. 3 months later, I know who I am. I'm not a project. I'm not a broken thing to be repaired. I have a full life. My design work, my friends, my independence. Yes, I use adaptive gear. Yes, I need access to certain things. But I don't need rescuing. Her gaze locked onto his with unflinching honesty. So if we're here because you feel sorry for me, or because you think fixing me will fix something in you, you need to tell me now. She inhaled shakily. Because I'm falling for you, Kale, and I can't survive another Kalen. I can't survive someone loving the idea of me, only to run from the reality. The words drifted into the quiet of the empty rehabilitation floor, the place where Ren had rebuilt herself, and where Kale had spent years guiding others back to their feet. Kale felt his eyes burn. He thought about everything from the past 3 months, the way he counted down the days until their next date, the way Cora asked about Ren every morning, the way she was now signing full sentences just to impress her. He thought of his mother pulling him aside, telling him not to lose this blessing, and he thought about Lyra, his wife, her hand cold inside, his as she whispered through fading breath, "Promise me you won't shut yourself away forever. Promise me you'll let love find you again." He released one of Ren's hands and signed with trembling fingers. I'm here because 3 months ago, I walked into a bar expecting the most disastrous blind date ever arranged on a station. His breath hitched. And instead, I met someone remarkable, someone who challenged me, who made me laugh again, someone who taught my daughter that different is not something to fear, someone who calls me out when I say something careless, someone who shows me my blind spots and doesn't let me hide behind them. He paused to make sure she was following his hands, every sign illuminated by the dim corridor lights. I am not here to fix you. You are not broken. I'm not here to replace Lyra. No one could, and I would never want that. She was my first love, Cora's mother, and she will always be a part of me. His signs grew more passionate, more certain. But I'm here because when I'm with you, I feel like I'm living again. Not just surviving, not just dragging myself through the day until I collapse from exhaustion. His throat tightened. That night in the bar, when you were crying and telling me to go, that was the instant Kale realized she was real. Ren hadn't performed for him. She hadn't tried to soften her edges or present a polished version of herself. She had shown him raw pain, anger, and fear. And in that unguarded honesty, despite the chaos of the setup, the tears, and the worst possible first impression, they had connected, truly connected. Kale took both her hands again, holding them gently in his. And I'm falling for you too, he signed. Not because of your chair. Not because you're deaf. Not despite those things. I'm falling for you because of who you are. Brilliant, funny, stubborn, passionate, real, every part of you exactly as you are. Ren brought her hands to her face, fresh tears streaming down her cheeks. Her bioluminescent markings pulsed with emotion. When she looked up, her eyes shimmered with a fragile, luminous hope. She spoke aloud, voice thick and uneven with emotion, yet undeniably earnest. Promise me this is real. Kale gently pulled her to him, cradling her in his arms. He felt her tears soak into his shirt, felt the steady beat of her heart against his chest. Pulling back just enough to meet her gaze, he signed clearly, "It is real, so real." Then Ren kissed him. Their first kiss, 3 months after that chaotic bar encounter, was soft and tentative, a mixture of tears, hope, and the quiet thrill of new beginnings. When they finally separated, both were crying and smiling. "I love you," Kyle signed, voice choked. Is it too soon? I love you, Ren whispered. I love you too, Kyle, and no, it isn't too soon. Not when it's true. They lingered in the empty rehabilitation center for another hour, sitting in the hallway where Ren had once cried over Kaylin's abandonment, where she had learned to be strong, where she had rebuilt herself from scratch. But this time she wasn't alone. This time someone was choosing to stay. In the months that followed, Kale and Ren navigated their relationship with care, honesty, and patience. They debated over Ren's fierce independence, which often made accepting help difficult, and Kale's habit of overextending himself, trying to be everything for everyone. They confronted the world's limitations, venues without accessible entrances, strangers who stared or made thoughtless remarks about interspecies relationships, moments of frustration when the galaxy itself seemed indifferent to wheelchairs, deaf communication, or unconventional love. But they also discovered unexpected joys, quiet, intimate conversations in crowded spaces where only they could understand each other, the creativity of planning adventures that everyone could enjoy, finding observation decks with ramps and wide corridors, selecting restaurants not only for cuisine but for accessibility, lighting, and space to communicate freely. Every challenge deepened their connection. Every adaptation strengthened their bond. Ren introduced herself to Kale's colleagues at Horizon Medical Complex, giving a presentation on accessible design and the representation of disability in media. Half the staff were moved to tears. The rest furiously scribbled notes. Kale watched from the back of the room, chest swelling with pride at her poise and expertise. Cora began calling Ren by name with casual affection, the ease of it bringing tears to both adults' eyes the first time they noticed. Ruth taught Ren family-specific signs, gestures passed down through generations, shared only with those considered truly part of the family. In early April, during the station's spring cycle, Kale took Ren and Cora to the observation deck overlooking the Helix Nebula. Ships drifted gracefully along orbital lanes, colors refracting through the nebula's gases. They traced constellations unseen from Earth, capturing images that could never be observed from any planetary surface. Exhausted and exhilarated, Cora fell asleep in the transport back to their quarters. Kale watched Ren observing, the child with such tender focus that he just knew what he had to do. For 2 weeks he had carried the ring in his pocket, waiting for the perfect moment. He had designed it with Ruth's blessing and Cora's enthusiastic input. A simple titanium band with a single emerald, grown in one of the station's crystal labs, a deep green like Earth's forests, a color Ren had never seen in person but adored in photographs. 9 months after that chaotic first encounter at the orbital hub bar, Kale brought Ren back to the station's biodome. The gardens were alive with color, a riot of engineered flora from half a dozen star systems, arranged in combinations that existed nowhere else in the galaxy. They found a secluded alcove, tucked beneath hanging vines that exhaled a sweet, alien fragrance into the filtered air. Why here? Ren signed, smiling, her markings soft but glowing with curiosity. Not that I'm complaining. It's beautiful. Kale's hands trembled slightly as he signed back. Because 9 months ago, I walked into a bar expecting the most awkward blind date of my life. And instead I found you. Ren laughed, the sound soft and melodic, her hands dancing in the air as she signed. Worst setup ever. We should send Lyron a thank you card for his terrible matchmaking. Kale's smile faltered for a heartbeat. Then carefully he dropped to one knee. Ren's eyes went wide. Her hands flew to her mouth. Kale opened a small ring box, revealing a simple band glinting in the biodome's bioluminescent light. He began signing, each movement deliberate, practiced for weeks with Cora's guidance.
Ren, that first night at the bar you were crying.
You told me to leave. You expected me to see you as broken, to pity or fix you. But I saw someone extraordinary. Brave, honest, real. Tears formed in his eyes as his hands continued. You've taught me how to truly see someone. You've shown Cora that strength comes in all forms. You've made me laugh again, made me dream again. Reminded me that surviving and living are not the same thing. Kale lifted the ring higher, catching the glow of alien flowers. I'm not asking you to complete me. I know now that's not how it works. But I'm asking you to build a life with me, to be Cora's mother, my partner in every chaotic, beautiful, messy part of this life. Will you marry me? For a long suspended moment, Ren just stared. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Her markings pulsed with pure, luminous emotion. Then her hands rose, shaking as she signed one simple word. Yes. Kyle slid the ring onto her finger and pulled her into a tender kiss, salty with tears and radiant with joy. When they separated, both were laughing and crying, faces glowing in the soft alien light. I love you, she whispered aloud, voice breaking but filled with warmth. I love you too, Kale signed, then repeated it again and again, signing and speaking, filling the biodome with declarations of love in 2 languages, a melody of commitment and joy. That evening, they told Cora. Kale had messaged Ruth to bring her to the biodome, and the 7-year-old burst in a flurry of excitement, nearly toppling Wren from her chair. I'm going to have a mom again, she signed frantically, grammar rough but sentiment clear. A real mom. Wren is my mom now. Wren smiled, wiping tears as she signed back carefully. It's more than okay. Cora hugged her again, then pulled back to ask another important question. Can I call you Mom, or do you want me to use your name? What do stepmoms like to be called? Wren's markings flickered with emotion. Whatever feels right to you, sweetheart. There's no wrong answer. Cora considered, then signed decisively. Mom. I want to call you Mom. Is that okay? More than okay, Wren signed back. It's perfect. Ruth pulled Kyle aside, signing with pride and emotion. Your father would be proud. And Lyra too. This is right. Kyle nodded, signing back for the first time in 3 years. I know. 3 months later, in early September, the wedding took place in the same biodome where Kale had proposed. It was intimate, family, and closest friends. Lyron stood as best man, apologizing intermittently for his disastrous matchmaking, though Kale insisted it had worked out. Cora was flower girl, scattering petals from imported earth blooms, some landing in the audience with gleeful abandon. The ceremony was conducted in both common and Veli visual language, with interpreters for guests unfamiliar with either. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, Cora's voice rang out. No way. This is the best thing ever. Laughter rippled through the biodome, warm and unrestrained. Kale and Wren exchanged vows, signing directly to one another as the interpreters spoke for the guests. Every eye in the biodome glistened with tears. They promised to see each other, to truly honor each other's strengths and wounds, to build a life shaped by clear communication and unshakable respect. I choose you, Kale signed. Every single day I choose you. Wren's hands rose to answer, her expression glowing with warmth. And I choose you. Thank you for staying that night, when I told you to go. Thank you for seeing me. Their kiss, sealed beneath the shimmering canopy of the biodome, drew cheers and applause from every corner of the gathering. Cora added a triumphant flourish of signs so dramatic that Wren burst into laughter mid-kiss, her markings flickering with joy. At the reception, Lyron offered a toast that began with, okay, so I might have catastrophically mismanaged their first date, and ended with, but look at them now, proof that even the worst ideas can grow into something beautiful. Ruth danced with Wren, both women signing to each other as they swayed, their hands moving in a quiet language of connection, far deeper than the music around them. Kale danced with Cora under dimmed lights, the biodome gently shifting to simulate evening, her grin so wide it seemed ready to break her cheeks. Later, Kale found Wren sitting alone on a small bench beneath a cluster of luminous leaves, watching the celebration unfold like a dream. What's running through your mind? He signed, settling beside her. That bar, Wren answered, her hands slow, thoughtful. 9 months ago I sat in that doorway, absolutely certain my life wouldn't get better. I thought I'd always be alone. That disappointment was the best I could hope for. She looked at him then, the glow from the flowers painting her features in soft color. And then you sat down next to me. You didn't walk away even when I pushed you to. You saw me at my worst, crying, furious, humiliated, and you stayed. Kale squeezed her hand. Best decision I ever made. Mine too, she signed with quiet conviction, choosing to start again.
Giving us a real chance.
She intertwined her fingers with his. I love you, husband. Kyle lifted his free hand and signed back, steady and full of affection. And I love you, wife. They remained there together as the celebration moved around them. Cora darting between other children, Ruth chatting animatedly with distant relatives, the soft hum of the station's life systems thrumming like a heartbeat through the dome. 2 people who had been shaped by loss, who had collided at their lowest moments, who had chosen truth over performance and built something steady from that honesty. Love, after all, wasn't about flawless introductions. It wasn't about showing up polished or perfect. Sometimes it began in the wreckage, in a bar doorway where someone sat convinced they were unlovable, and someone else simply refused to leave. It was choosing a partner who didn't need you to be fixed, who saw your mobility chair, your hearing devices, your scars, all of it, and loved you not despite them, not because of them, but because they were pieces of the whole. Remarkable person you were. It was two people arriving with grief and baggage and fear, and still deciding that together was better than alone. Kale and Ren's story had started with tears, frustration, humiliation, and the kind of vulnerability born from too many old wounds. It had begun with Liran's well-meaning but disastrous matchmaking, with miscommunications and every excuse to walk away. But they didn't, they stayed. They chose honesty. They chose to truly see one another. And in doing so, they found something neither had dared hope for, yet both desperately needed. A partner who understood that strength wasn't the absence of breaking. It was learning how to rebuild, and helping the person you love rebuild too. Sometimes the greatest love stories begin in tears. Sometimes they start in bars with awful setups and worse first impressions. Sometimes they begin when someone looks at you at your lowest and simply says, "I'm not leaving." And if fortune is kind, those stories end in glowing biodomes, with rings, vows, and the certainty that you have found someone who will choose you every single day exactly as you are.